The Brothers of Liberty, here to remind you what true freedom is. Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Brothers of Liberty with the older brother Kelton here. Um, for this next subject here, we're actually going to be talking about an incident that happened in Detroit. And it does have national repercussions. And you're probably wondering what happened in Detroit that would have national repercussions. Well, let me explain the story and then elaborate. Um, On Friday night, Detroit police break up a native sugar bash ceremony. Um, they shut down an indigenous sugar bash ceremony, despite the people having valid permits and approval from the city. Now, according to the deputy fire commissioner, Dave Fornell, while the group applied for a permit, the application was never completed. Um, the organizers showed the permits to the officer in charge. And however, by the time they're trying to straighten it up, six officers in tactical gear told the attendees they had 2 minutes to put out the fire and leave. They claimed that the officers did not want to hear about the Religious Freedom Act and their sovereignty. One officer from a video can be heard saying that sovereign stuff is not valid. Now, as a lot of people see this an attack on the Native Americans because of the fact that they're not because they're Native Americans, this actually has a larger repercussion of what's happening. Um, Now, how does it affect us in the long run? Well, let's look at this. They had permits. Now, the deputy chief said, oh, the application wasn't processed. Then how did they have a physical permit in their hand? That's called a lie. Unless your city is so stupid they give out permits before everything's completed. But it is Detroit, a Democrat city, so you may just be that stupid. But we'll give you the benefit of the doubt and say you have half a brain, that you use a percent of your brain. Now, so they have the permits, which means it was approved and the application was completed. But because you didn't like what they were doing, you said, oh, they didn't do that and let's send it out. And then they try to the cops say, oh, your sovereign stuff's not valid. Well, what stops any police department in any city or federal troop to say that a protest is no longer valid, even if you have all the permits, just because they don't like what you're saying? Like Trudeau didn't like the peaceful protesters in Ottawa, so he had to declare a national emergency because he was mad because he wasn't in charge and he wanted to make sure people know his name of Justin Castro. I mean Fidel Trudeau. I mean Justin Trudeau. What stops any agency from any protests if they don't have the same views from doing exactly what the Detroit Police Department did? Now, in the end, they said it was a big mix up and everything else, but was it truly a mix up? Or they were just testing to see how far they can go when, let's say, a group comes and they don't like what that group is protesting about or having a rally about? I mean, this was even a protest, this was a ceremony, not even a protest. This was actually teaching people how to be more ecological. They've been doing this for 3 years. How to take sap from maple syrup from a tree and then burn it properly, and being one with nature, which isn't that's all about the left wing to be ecologically sound, and yet they went after this group for no reason. Peaceful group, like I said, maybe because they didn't like the views, but this is going to happen all over. People have valid permits and it's oh, it's not valid. The application wasn't completed because they decide they don't agree with you, or they get pressure from above to tell you not to agree with them. And a lot of people may be saying this is a big conspiracy job, but is it really? You know, Reagan said himself, we're one generation away from losing freedoms. You lose freedoms by things that happen like this. And people need to be vigilant. So, with that being said, this is definitely a shorter video because there's not too much else to elaborate on it except for just start watching it happen when rallies and protests start really happening, when the local government doesn't like the views, and see what happens. And that's just my opinion on it. But what's your opinion? Comment on here. And as always, like, share, subscribe. We'll love to hear, we'll love to have more people to join in. And if you have any topics you want us to discuss or anything you want us to pass along, Brothers of Liberty 76 at gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And this is the older brother Liberty, always reminding you what true freedom is and ought to be.